Hello everybody and welcome back to MSVT Racing and welcome back to the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. Tonight we are here at Alton Park. It isn't raining as the graphics suggest, but I'm sure we will see plenty of sideways and door-to-door action as we've seen all season. Joining me in the commentary box for the second time this season after a brief stint behind the wheel is Mark Werrell. How are you?
Yeah, great to be back, everybody. Thanks for joining us here for the third round of the Winter Sim Series for EnduroKA. And Alton Park, a challenging circuit, very much different, far more undulating than we saw last time out at Snetterton on the 300. But Jack, 3 races in, 3 different winners so far.
Yeah, it's pretty much what we expected, but it's not only the 3 different winners, it's how much the order has shuffled around from the start to now. We've seen good and bad races for faster and slower drivers. It's been a real mix of results for pretty much the entire grid. So it's been great to watch, and I can't wait. We've still got more rounds to go, of course. We are here tonight for round 4, 60 minutes once again of racing action. In 2 weeks' time, we head to Brands Hatch for the longest race of the season, which is a 90-minute race. And on the 18th of March, which will be round 6, the final round of the season, that track is very shortly to be voted on. It will go to public vote, I believe, this evening or over the next couple of days. So if you are watching along and you would like to play your part in the series, you can vote on where that final round will be hosted. And of course, throughout the season, we have had some brilliant sponsors and we continue to work with them. They make everything happen here. Positive Perception being one of them, making all of the liveries you see on show this evening, and they do look really good. I'm sure we will have a chat with Mark Raddenbury, the man behind everything at Positive Perception, in a short while. Turn 7, we had a chat with one of the guys from Turn 7, Callum McDougall, last time out at Snetterton. They make some great racewear, do a lot of work with caterers as well, so it's great to have them on board. And of course, all of that helps the championship and the series become what it is, but everyone is fighting for the same prize. The top 3 finishers from the series will win a fully funded ARDS license. If you already have one, you can obviously give that to a friend or family member or anything like that. And if you don't have one, what a great way to get your racing license and potentially go and race a Ford KA. And of course, if you do get that ARDS license and you can then go racing, nothing's stopping you from joining the EnduroKA series, because entries are now open. So it's the stars have aligned. Everything could go your way. You win in a virtual KA, you might just find yourself behind the wheel of an actual one.
Yeah, and I suppose it's not that many more weeks before the actual KA series gets underway in the early part of April, and it will race at Silverstone for the first time ever. So MSVT Racing, who are another sponsor of the series, along with Burton Power, our title sponsors, really exciting. Registration is open. Get the entries in nice and early. If you haven't got a car, chat to on social media, on the Facebook page, whether it be on Instagram or on Twitter as well. Get hold of people from EnduroKA, because there are teams out there that have spaces available so that you can buy your seat with any of the teams. It's as we've said so many times, Jack, really affordable way to go motor racing.
Yeah, very affordable and very close, very respectful racing as well, as we've seen over the previous seasons of the actual EnduroKA series and also the Winter Sim series. It's been absolutely brilliant from start to finish. So let's have a quick look back to see what happened last time out at Snetterton. On, and we are away here at Snetterton, round 3. It's a good start from the inside of the front row of the grid, but an even better start for Tom O'Farrell. However, we're now looking at Frank Frostick side by side with Jamie Peters-Ennis. This is the last thing Jamie wants, because he has been fighting for the final step of the podium, and now he's just going to lose yet more time to Frank. That is Bobby Simmons trying to work his way back past Nathan Down. He's got the nose in front. You can see the switch on the timing tower. In the background, there's more battles as well. Thanks to account, though, since being in the pit lane, Jamie Peters-Ennis has spent a lot longer in the car, so he might be back used to that EnduroKA to the 50th. And now we're seeing Andrew Greer-Hardy, having only just made that position under pressure once again from Frank Frostick. Looks to the inside. Can he get the car slowed down?
And now Mark's gonna, well, they're both gonna have to slow down. Oh, that was impact between the two. Well, it looked like there was impact between the two, but Mark managing to get the car slowed down despite being helped.
Yet to pit. So theoretically, this is a battle you don't want to fight if you're Kingston Lee.
Not ideally, but that's the battle that he faces, whether he likes it or not. Side by side through Ritchie's. Here we go again, rather a carbon copy of what we saw between Mark Wherrell and Nathan Down of the Wilson hairpin. And Tom Bunton has a look on the inside line as Joe has gone a little bit too deep into the hairpin. The grid finder car trying to capitalise on. They're all
driving even. You will always have somebody to race against. Jack Mace later on the brakes, up the inside on the run up towards Montreal, manages to get the car slowed down, back up the inside, but of course the tight line in means the wider line out. That allows Ollie Ricks to set the car up quite nicely.
Is that going to remain that way? Is the 119 going to try and outbrake the grid finder car? He remains on the inside line. Racing room from Tom Bunton, nicely driven, and that is 15th place back. The look on the inside line of Hamilton. You've got to be brave to commit to a move there, even in these cars. The track is wide enough to do it, but that's the danger. You're just wandering a little bit too wide. Greer Hardy's got back on track. He's going to lose that position unless he can hold.
Towards the line for the final time comes Tom O'Farrell to take a win here at Snetterton. Wins round 3 of the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. So a very quick look back there to all of the action that was hosted at Snetterton 2 weeks ago, and of course now we're halfway through the series. We can have a look at the championship standings because points are becoming ever more important. So we can see whereabouts people are lining up, and there's a real range of drivers that are bouncing up and down the order at the moment. James Black is at the head of affairs by an entire point. Bobby Simmons on the 69 points, just sat behind, and then we get tied third place between Tom O'Farrell and Joe Kingston Lee on 60 points. And these are the people you need to keep an eye on because they could be battling not only for track position but also championship position as well. And currently sat 5th in the championship is Colin Dunn on 58 points, only 2 behind the 2 drivers in front. So it's really all to play for. And speaking of Colin Dunn, he races in one of the personally, I would say one of the best liveries that is out in the series. Of course, the Positive Perception car. And why not have a chat with the man that works behind the scenes at Positive Perception, Mark Raddenbury. Welcome to the commentary box.
Thank you for having me on this lovely Saturday evening.
No problem at all. So, of course, you've put in a lot of work. You were chatting to us before we went live about just how much work you've put into these liveries, and they all look amazing. The hard work has definitely paid off. But for those that maybe haven't heard of Positive Perception or don't quite know what you do, in your own words, just explain what Positive Perception is.
Yeah, of course. So Positive Perception was a social media company to begin with, and then lockdown happened. And I was bored at home, winding my missus up every day of the week because I didn't have any work. I just thought, what can I do? A friend of mine sold me a wheel, and then I got into The Sims, and I thought it'd be cool to have my own design. And it's just it's snowballed from there over the last 3 years to become this empire that I've built of livery design. And I absolutely love it. I love being creative. I'm a better designer than I am a racer.
Well, you must be pretty damn good behind the wheel because the liveries are second to none. They do look really good. Mark, anything from yourself?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've designed these liveries. We're running this sim series for EnduroKA in Assetto Corsa. What other platforms do Positive Perception work with? Is it just Assetto Corsa, or is it a much broader spectrum than that?
No, it's an incredible spectrum. So I tend to concentrate on the Assetto Corsa Competizione, R Factor 2, and we've just recently restarted doing Live for Speed. I've got a business partner, David Ressel. He will also do iRacing as well as Assetto Corsa Competizione, and I am training him up currently on R Factor 2. So we cover pretty much all the bases everywhere we can. We're kind of excited for Rennsport when that comes out to see if we can start playing with the liveries and that. So watch this space for even more that we'll be able to do at Positive Perception.
Great stuff. Well, obviously, Rennsport, a massive ripple in what is sim racing nowadays. So, fingers crossed. Obviously, that definitely comes to fruition, and we can see yet more of your liveries. But aside from Rennsport, what's the vision for the future with Positive Perception?
To just keep on going, keep plugging, keep producing, and just just keep expanding our repertoire of designs. I'm constantly seeing designs out there in the wild. I mean, British GT this week have released some absolute stunners. And I have already done one replica, and today I was working on the Toro Verde Ginetta replica that are just absolute gorgeous machines. You know, I always take the inspiration from the real world. V8 supercars are a massive inspiration for me. I've just finished for myself an Indigenous round special on a Chevrolet. We just want Positive Perception to be the place, you know, for custom liveries, as well as for our own race series that we do as well.
So, Mark, final question then, before we start to look at the grid and get things underway. If people want to come to you, whether it be for an esports livery or even a real car livery, because it's all scalable in terms of what you do, what's the best thing that they can do? Social media, I would guess.
We cover all the bases. You can find us on Twitter, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Instagram. You could even send us a good old-fashioned email just by popping to our website, positiveperception.co.uk.
Great stuff. And of course, we're going to have to squeeze it in just before we go to look at the grid. Real world liveries as well. You've got a bit of involvement there, I believe.
We have the classic, is the Grid Finder KA, as driven by Tom Bunton in this series, and driven in real life. We did both. And we've also got a bit of a special offer going for any KA teams out there. Normally we charge about £150 for a livery design. If it's a KA, we're only going to charge you 100, and you're going to get the full package from us.
Great stuff. Well, hopefully it isn't just the Grid Finder car that we see designed by you out on the actual EnduroKA grid this season. Well, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary box. It's been a pleasure to hear more about Positive Perception and everything we can expect to see from you in the future. So best of luck to not only yourself, but Colin Dunn tonight as well. So I'm guessing that's who you'll be cheering on. But thank you very much, Mark.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers. So a quick chat there from Mark Raddenbury, and we've only got 2 or 3 minutes until we go racing, and I believe we have the grid, Mark.
Yep, that's right. So it's Bobby Simmons that qualified on pole position by about 0.2 of a second from Jamie Peters-Ennis, who's had his best qualifying of the season so far. He'll line up alongside. Row 2 of the grid is Tom O'Farrell, the man who lies third in the championship and won last time out at Snetterton, and it's another race winner. The first round was won by Gary Preble at Donington Park. He lines up 4th on the grid. James Black, the championship leader but has yet to take a win, sits there 5th, and Joe Kingston Lee, the highest placed driver in the championship that hasn't had a podium finish, will line up 6th. It's Peter Jones and Jack Mace in 7th and 8th place, with David Evans and Colin Dunn wrapping up the top 10. Andrew Greer-Hardy, who made his debut in the championship at Snetterton last time out, sits there in 11th position. And then as we move outside of the top 11 onto 12th position, we will see the second page of the graphic come up. It's Nick Creed that sits there in 12th place. Greg Copeland and Greg Giles are there, 13th and 14th, with Mark Cockerton and Frank Frostick, who had a poor qualifying. He's only 16th, Frank, and was in the top 10 last time out at Snetterton. He's there in 16th place. Alex Saville and Alex Walker ahead of James Wakefield, Callum Perfect, Nathan Down, and Costa C, I gather, is off the back of the grid. Both himself and Nathan Down didn't make qualifying. They've had to travel back. Hopefully they've made it back to their rigs in time.
Well, fingers crossed, because that is a 22 car strong grid, and Alton Park, it's one of those circuits, there at parts there's a good enough amount of runoff, at other parts it's little to none. There's some very fast flowing sections of the circuit, there's some quite tight and twisty sections as well, a couple of chicanes to negotiate as well as a hairpin, so lots and lots to think about behind the wheel of these KAs tonight. You can see everybody on the grid ready to go. The lights pop up on screen, we've got to wait for all 6 to illuminate, and then as soon as the lights disappear, we will go racing for the 4th time this season here at Alton Park. Lights on, and they go out now. We will wait to see who gets the best of the starts. It looks like potentially that could be our pole man, Bobby Simmons, that managed to get away well. Jamie Peters-Ennis looking around the outside early on. Tom O'Farrell trying to get in there as well. Side by side through turn 1 they go, and then down the avenue towards Denton's. It's a bit manic in the background, a couple of cars going around, and hopefully everybody can carry on, but at the moment it's still side by side for the lead. Bobby Simmons leading Jamie Peters-Ennis into the corner. Jamie Peters-Ennis leading Bobby Simmons on the way out. Tom O'Farrell is trying to work his way up the inside, but as we head towards Island Bend and Shell Oil's corner for the first time, it's far from settled.
It's far from settled at all. Jamie Peters-Ennis hanging on to the lead of the race, but he's got Bobby Simmons right with him, then Tom O'Farrell, then you've also got Gary Preble in the mix as well. There's a little bit of contact heading in towards the Shell Oils hairpin. A sideways moment just forces Bobby Simmons wide there. There's a little bit more contact on the way out, and getting fired off and into the barriers, I'm afraid, is Tom O'Farrell. We've also, of course, got those two cars that were tangled up at the first corner. Nick Creed was one of those that got tangled up, and the other one was Andrew Greer-Hardy, who made his debut at Snetterton last time out. But for all of that, Jamie Peters-Ennis leads and has daylight between himself and the car in second place, which is Bobby Simmons.
Yeah, he's just about out of that draft range, so Bobby Simmons can continue to do what he can to work his way back towards Jamie Peters-Ennis. He doesn't really need to worry about what's going on in the background, because Peter Jones, Jack Mace and Colin Dunn all fighting away. Jack Mace works his way up in towards P3, a couple of horns blaring in the distance. Colin Dunn trying to better his position within the top five, currently sat in fifth. Through Knickerbrook they go up Clay Hill, and it's still almost nose to tail right the way down to what is 13th, 14th place even. Through Water Tower in towards Druids, they will go for the first time. Jack Mace still sat there in third place. There's a bit of chopping and changing in the background. That's Glenn Copeland and James Black trading places for 8th. A couple of cars running wide, but at the moment he seems fairly well behaved. After we've got through turn 1 and the few little knocks on the exit of Shell Oils, it seems like everyone's slowly starting to settle in. Of course, we can't really forget we've got an hour's worth of racing, so a little bit of time lost now isn't really going to affect you. Isn't really going to affect you at the end of the 60 minutes.
Now we've got an hour's worth of racing, and it's well worth remembering that mandatory pit stop that needs to take place as well, and that needs to take place between the 10th and the 50th minute of the race. And that was a little bit of the undoing, really, of our race leader this time out, Jamie Peters-Ennis at Snetterton. He opted to start early. However, for the first time this year, it looks as though we've got the safety car out on track.
We do indeed, and we mentioned it before we went live that we hadn't had one. They can't really be commentators cursed as we weren't live at the time, but like you say, the safety car is out, so everybody will catch the safety car queue and can really start to focus on strategy at this point. There was a bit of talk about tyre temperature. Of course, now is the prime time to save fuel, because you can sit there in 4th place, dip the clutch where you deem necessary, or do you jump into the pit lane now? Is it too early? How long is the safety car going to be out? There's so many different things the drivers have got to think about, and we're only, 2 minutes into the race?
And some of the, I know full well from Snetterton last weekend, if I'd have completed a slowdown lap, I'd have run out of fuel. Frank Frosting was saying afterwards on a different Discord channel, he literally got to turn 2 to the checkered flag and he was out of fuel. So these cars are running it so marginally on the fuel. Drivers will have done lots of testing, they'll have done lots of practicing to understand what the fuel burn is. They'll then set their strategy for their pit stop to decide what fuel they want to put in and how much. And if they are running it a little bit tight, this little safety car might just help them. What it hasn't done, though, it certainly hasn't helped this safety car, both Jamie Peters-Ennis and Bobby Simmons, because they were first and second, Jack. They'll still remain first and second, but they've got that break, haven't they? They've got that little bit of daylight between themselves and the pack behind. That all is going to disappear to nothing.
Yeah, Jamie Peters-Ennis 1.5 seconds in front of Bobby Simmons. Bobby Simmons almost 2 seconds in front of Jack Mace before the safety car came out. All of that time that they built up has now disappeared. Jack Mace is a very, very quick driver. We saw some very clever driving and a brilliant comeback drive from Jack Mace at Silverstone, where he found himself stone dead last and worked his way back up to, I think, what was P10. So an incredible drive at Silverstone from Jack Mace. Safety car lights have been extinguished, so the safety car will be into the pit lane this lap. But like you mentioned, that could massively affect strategy and just allow a couple of the drivers to stretch their fuel a little bit further than they were expecting, or make their mandatory pit stop just a slight bit shorter. Has Jamie Peters-Ennis gone already? I'm not 100% sure. Yes, it looks like, going off the body language of that car, Jamie Peters-Ennis has gone. He's made a break for it. It wasn't really a bad start from him until that point on the exit of Lodge. He ran slightly wide. That might compromise his run across the start-finish line. So Bobby Simmons just about a second away. Jack Mace a little bit further back from Bobby Simmons than he would like, but in the background you can just see the interval between drivers at the moment. It's absolutely nothing, nose to tail, as everybody crosses the line, gets back up to race pace. And of course, this is something you've got to think about. A car very, very wide, bouncing over the grass, just about avoiding the curbs. I didn't quite pick out who that was at the time. It's the 888 machine, so that'll be Joe Kingston Lee not getting off to the best start.
No, yeah, really poor exit of the first corner of Old Hall Corner for Joe Kingston Lee. So he bumbles across the gas and is able to rejoin, but has just lost a couple of places. There's a great fight going on at the moment for 4th and 5th position, I noticed as well. Peter Jones, who also ran wide at Old Hall Corner, is coming under enormous pressure from Colin Dunn. The two of those almost pushing each other around the circuit, but they are just fighting positions outside of the podium spots at the moment. We've still got 54 minutes of the race to go. We're really only on the second lap at full race pace as well at this stage, with Jamie Peters-Ennis leading the way at this stage from Bobby Simmons in second place. The car who's heading through shot there is the 53 car, and that is at the moment looking to try and see if it can scoop up a position and get itself inside the top 6.
Yep, so that's David Evans coming under yet more pressure from James Black. Tom O'Farrell, of course, round 3 winner, right the way down in 15th place after the lap 1 incident. Harder on the brakes up the inside of David Evans goes James Black, gets the car slowed down, but now David Evans would be expected to go back on the attack, but he's got no time. Glenn Copeland all over his tail, trying to work his way through and past for what will be 7th place. So only going backwards at the moment is David Evans. They can't hang around too much because the recovering Joe Kingston Lee is definitely there and making his intentions known as well. But Tom O'Farrell and Gary Preble, definitely drivers you need to keep an eye on, fighting their way back through the order. Currently 14th and 15th. In 52 minutes time, that could very much change, as we're already seeing Tom O'Farrell picking up yet another position, getting through and past Alex Walker, bouncing all over the grass on the exit of Druids. I've got a feeling, I wanted to say it was Colin Dunn, but it's too far back for that. But look at the battle on screen now, heading in towards Lodge and on the way through Deer Leap in a few moments time. That's a great battle. Joe Kingston Lee trying to, is that work his way around the outside or defend? I couldn't quite pick out what. I think he did both at the same time.
Yeah, attack and defend. Stick your elbows out, crack on with it. But for the moment, yeah, Joe Kingston Lee is just managing to hang on to the position. But you can see he's got cars ahead of him, he's got cars below, we've got more cars running ever wider coming out of Old Hall Corner there, not least of which was Colin Dunn again, who ran hugely wide. That's the second lap on the trot that he's run wide there, and if there's any question that you run wide and then improve your lap time, that will count as a cut on circuit. So the best thing for drivers to do, if they've run that little bit wide, just get off the gas, just bring your lap time down a little bit, and then you'll get away with that little mistake. You won't pick up a post-race penalty as such. The battle for the lead, though, beginning to close up on the right-hand side of your screen. Jamie Peters-Ennis, who had got away from Bobby Simmons, will purple through sector 1, purple through sector 2. The purple sector racing car of Bobby Simmons is closing up.
Yes, he's getting very, very close, well within striking distance. But what does he do at this point? Does he just sit behind and save a bit of fuel? Does he try and force the mistake? He's got no pressure from behind at the moment. 2.5 seconds between Bobby Simmons and Jack Mace, so there's no real pressure for him to make that move. He can force the mistake. Bouncing over the curbs, going skywards, was James Black, trying to work his way past Colin Dunn. Peter Jones had to cut the exit of the Britain chicane, couldn't get it slowed down. Back to the right-hand side of your screen, however, you see Bobby Simmons trying to work the cutback on the way through Knickerbrook. To the left-hand side of your screen, you've got James Black desperately trying to work his way past Colin Dunn after working their way through and past Peter Jones. There's overtakes absolutely everywhere. Where do we look? We've got 2 screens. We probably need 20 for all of the cars that are on circuit.
Yeah, our poor old director Dan is going to be very busy trying to pick up the action because there's so much of it. Whether you look at the front or you look at the back, it's the same in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series as it is in the real series. There's always somebody to have a race with. Jamie Peters-Ennis busy with his hands rather full. Bobby Simmons attacking him. On the left of your screen, you can see another corner cut there. That was Joe Kingston Lee, who rather seems to have gone backwards now and might be outside of the top 10. In fact, he's down to 11th, maybe even 12th place at the end of this lap in the light blue car. He's had a couple of fairly poor laps, hasn't he, at the wheel of the 888 car, but over the start finish line, another lap chalked into the book for Jamie Peters-Ennis. That's 4 laps completed now. The pressure is not really going away, is it? He's still got Bobby Simmons right with him, but Bobby Simmons, fresh from a win at Silverstone on the national circuit, will desperately want to try and keep his points haul going well here, because he is, remember Jack, only 1 point off the championship leader James Black in terms of the championship.
Yeah, so there's very little to pick between anybody at this point, let alone on circuit in the championship as well. I was just giggling away to myself on the exit of turn 1. Both Jamie Peters-Ennis and Bobby Simmons taking the same line, running quite wide. Jack Mace then appeared and went even wider still. It has cost him time. He's now 3 seconds away from Bobby Simmons, 3.7 seconds back from Jack Mace's Colin Dunn. So the top two definitely working away from the rest of the pack. Frank Frosting has managed to get in front of Joe Kingston-Lee. Tom O'Farrell has picked up another position on this lap, working his way past Nathan Down. Here is James Black trying to get another position. That will be fourth if he can get past Colin Dunn. We've seen this battle slowly start to evolve over the couple of laps prior. Peter Jones has got the best seats in the house. He can't really decide what he wants to do, but he can't hang around for too long because David Evans is just sat behind. Here we're back to the lead battle. This is Bobby Simmons trying to brave it out around the outside. I think there was a little bit of contact between the pair of them, just door to door, nothing major. They both worked their way through the chicane once again, now through Knickerbrook. Bobby Simmons not getting the best run on the exit of the chicane, but slowly starting to pick up a bit of time as they head up Clay Hill. That could be something to do with maybe missing a gear for Jamie Peters-Ennis, anything like that. Back to the mid-pack on the right-hand side of your screen. There's absolutely everything going on, and I've got to say, Dan's doing a great job of capturing it all.
Yeah, that's Frank Frosting, who is on the right-hand side of your screen. Remember, he qualified out of position. I said he was 16th, which was quite low, really, for Frank. He's now up into 10th and has got himself ahead of Nathan Down, and that's the car he's now looking to try and pull away from, if at all he can. And it's Tom O'Farrell, who's also looking to try and recover, that's just up the road from that. Tom having been pitched into that spin early doors in this race. Race leaders are about to head once more out on Deer Leap, but over the start-finish line, it's still Jamie Peters-Ennis that leads the way. Bobby Simmons still sitting right on his coattails on the left-hand side of your screen as they head up towards the braking area for Old Hall Corner. This was where they ran wide last time. Jamie Peters-Ennis took a slightly tighter line in, but a much wider line taken out by Bobby Simmons. Might give them a bit more momentum as they head along the avenue and down into Cascades. And this time it looks like Bobby Simmons is trying to try and get the inside line for Cascades. He's got the inside line. Jamie Peters-Ennis needs to give him room here. He just is able to cut across the nose. Needs to be careful that he doesn't run wide coming out of the corner. Just about keeps enough momentum and just about keeps his nose ahead.
Yep, and nose to tail contact there. Bobby Simmons pushing Jamie Peters-Ennis. That could just be enough, so he's got to brake a little bit earlier in towards the Shell Oils hairpin, side by side through the left-hander at Island Bend, hard on the brakes in towards Shell Oils corner, down a gear, and Bobby Simmons, he had a look, the door was half open, but pulled out of the move, and very conservative driving there from Bobby Simmons, just biding his time. He's I'm sure well aware that there's still 47 minutes of the race remaining, but that will go in the blink of an eye, as we've seen all season. I think a mistake from Peter Jones has dropped him right the way down to 9th place. Positions gained for Tom O'Farrell, Glenn Copeland and David Evans by the looks of that. Bobby Simmons all over the grass through the Britain chicane. Down Hilltop they will go in towards Hislops. Not quite as close as we saw last lap is Bobby Simmons. It looks like James Black once again is trying to get the move over on Colin Dunn in towards Hislops this time. In the background you can see they're side by side. James Black on the inside this time, gets the car slowed down, grabs the apex, and that's position secure. Up into 4th place. He had to work very hard for that, and he's got, what, 5.8 seconds up to Jack Mace now. So after all of that hard work, he's had to go from attack to defence, and he can't even think about trying to work away because his rearview mirror is full of Colin Dunn.
Yeah, so the Graves Motorsport car goes through and ahead of the Positive Perception back car in the hands of Colin Dunn. He looked to try and reassert himself, and if they start to squabble, remember, hovering around in the background still is David Evans for some Preedy Racing. Side by side here, Tom O'Farrell looking to try and get the overlap and sneaks through and ahead of Glenn Copeland. So that's 7th and 8th place still as he's squabbling away. Tom O'Farrell setting some good lap times as he tries to charge his way back through the order after the problems early on. Remember, he was the winner last time out at Snetterton. That's his only podium finish of the season so far. He was just off the podium at Donington when he finished in 4th place overall. Had a fairly poor Silverstone though, didn't he, did Tom O'Farrell, where he finished outside of the top 15, but having just gained that place, what's he got to do? Straight away defend, because Glenn Copeland's having none of it. He'd desperately like it back, but he's not quite in a position to try and do so as they're heading towards Old Hall this time through.
No, it's just one of those things, as both of them go very, very, very wide, and that will definitely be slowly starting to grab the attentions of the race stewards, because you can do it a couple of times and maybe get away with it, but if you start to take liberties with the track limits, doing that every lap, and then, like you say, not giving up the time that you have potentially gained, that is when the penalties will slowly start to come. Tom O'Farrell's still under pressure from Glenn Copeland. Glenn has got the inside for the left-hander, very quick left-hander. You can't risk contact through here, and it looks like he's managed to get the move done. Nearly runs Tom O'Farrell out of road. A quick flash of the lights there by the looks of that. Tom O'Farrell down again into 8th place, picks up the throttle earlier, almost a bit of contact between the pair of them. You can hear the horn being sounded by Tom O'Farrell, just letting him know that he desperately wants that position back. But all of this battling has brought Peter Jones into the fold, and Frank Frostig, he's only 8 tenths away. We know how quick Frank can be, so we could very quickly see 4 cars all fighting over one place. Great cutback there from Tom O'Farrell, but that will put him on the outside for his lops if he can't get in front by this point. But 4 cars fighting over one place, not exactly something that's strange to see in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series.
No, not at all. It looks as though Glenn Copeland might lose 2 places here yet, because Tom O'Farrell goes through. Peter Jones is also able to sneak his way through and ahead as well, so a couple of places lost there, I'm afraid to say. Now it looks as though Tom O'Farrell can fully concentrate his efforts and try and disappear up the road. However, just ahead of him, we've still got Colin Dunn, who is not letting James Black in 4th place disappear up the road. Those two are still absolutely rooted together as they head round through Druids this time through. Druids is a very daunting corner in any car. Problems in the background, that's Jack Mace that's had an off. He's not the only one that's had an off. A couple of cars at Knickerbrook there just in the process of recovering. The other one is the 31 car, which is going to be Cockerton. So both of those managed to recover, but that will have dropped them well and truly down through the order now. So it looks as though they're going to be down in something like, sorry, Nathan Down, wasn't it? 17th and 18th places overall.
Yeah, so positions being gained and positions being lost everywhere we look. We're almost a third of the way through the race already. This is Frank Frostig having just made a position under pressure from losing it once again. Glenn Copeland side by side. He's got the inside line for turn 1. Can he make the move stick? Yes, he can on the way in. On the way out, running wide as you'd expect from Frank Frostig. Even wider goes Joe Kingston Lee, and everybody follows suit really at this point. But definitely Frank Frostig and Tom O'Farrell, the drivers to watch. We saw them right the way down 14th and 15th place. They're now 7th and 10th respectively.
Yeah, there were questions about how much you can use at turn number 1, because of course when these cars are testing, the drivers get flagged up by the sim as to when they run wide. Now you look at those cars there, they're all 4 wheels off at turn number 1, and that's because the particular mod that we're using for Alton Park this evening, that grasscrete as it's called, so where the concrete is painted green, on this mod doesn't flag up as that being an area where you've cut the tracks. That's why we're seeing so many cars run out wide onto that first element of grass. You look beyond that where it turns to true grass, that's when if you run wide the sim will pick up on that's a cut. So that's just one of the areas where the drivers are maximising the opportunity to carry as much momentum as they can through that first corner, but that has been clarified by the organisers for this evening, and the sim will not pick up on that spin and cut.
Yeah, and absolutely, if you are behind the wheel of one of these cars, why not? If that is a bit of track, or is part of the circuit which is classified as within the track boundaries, why not use that? That could almost gain you a couple of tenths on the car ahead if they're not using it. And exactly why wouldn't you use it? If you're not going to get flagged, go for it, because everyone is dealing with the same ruling at the moment. We're riding on board with Colin Dunn, looking forward to James Black. He's almost within touching distance at the moment. I've got a feeling at this stage of the race he won't be that desperate to get in front. I believe Colin Dunn is 5th in the championship as well, so he doesn't really want to risk too much. Jamie Peters-Ennis, I was about to mention it earlier on, had pulled away from Bobby Simmons, but at the moment the delta is coming down. Bobby Simmons reeling the race leader in once again. Jack Mace 4 seconds away now, so the top 2 pulling away from Jack Mace. And Jack Mace isn't slow, so that shows the true pace of the top 2 this evening. Fastest lap of the race has been set by Bobby Simmons at 2 minutes 15.875, some 5 tenths quicker than Jamie Peters-Ennis has gone all race. And Colin Dunn is well and truly there, all over the tail of James Black. In the background, heading over D-Elite now, is Gary Preble, working his way past Greg Giles, who has dived into the pit lane, the first of our drivers in towards the pit lane to take their mandatory pit stop by the looks of that.
Yep, so the pit window's been open about 10 minutes, but the first of the drivers just opted to go in now. Gary Preble, therefore, moves himself up into 12th position. Now, did we see the back end of a mistake there from Bobby Simmons? Because all of a sudden he was sideways. That must have been coming out of Cascades, where he had a bit of a moment. And you can see visually the gap has really opened up between himself and Jamie Peters-Ennis. So Jamie Peters-Ennis, who so far this season has had a best of a 5th position, and that was last time out at Snetterton. Other than that, he'd not been inside the top 10 in previous rounds, but at the moment he has led every lap of the race so far. And for Bobby Simmons, having made that mistake, he's now got to redouble his efforts to try and close back up again for the lead of the race, which has come out to over a second.
Yeah, so it's getting ever busier on circuit. We're seeing yet more drivers just get closer together or fall away into the clutches of somebody else. There is Frank Frostick. He's got Joe Kingston Lee. Well, it was all over his tail, but at the moment, I've got a feeling that'll be Joe Kingston Lee working his way through and past, because in towards Britain's, it looked a little bit quick, and on the exit, couldn't quite get the car slowed down, and Frank Frostick used all of the curb and a bit more, all four wheels off the ground, and there you go. So he's gone from attack to attack again, but this time it's a different driver, because Joe Kingston Lee has managed to work his way in between Frank Frostick and Glenn Copeland. So at the moment it's gone from trying to work his way past one car, now it's two. Frank Frostick has got all that work to do again, and that's only going to cost him time. He's got no pressure from behind, so at least that's something he can take away from it. The leaders are getting closer together once again. Jack Mace, we may have seen a mistake, because that's gone from 4 seconds to 5 seconds in the space of a lap. And James Black has managed to work his way out of the grasp of Colin Dunn. So the top 5 are slowly starting to separate, bar first and second.
Yeah, so it looks like Joe Kingston Lee is in attack mode again. He's looking to try and draw himself alongside Glenn Copeland. He's not going to be able to do it as they head up towards Lodge Corner. We ride on board with Frank Frostick, who was hoping for a top 10 this evening. Sits there in 11th position at the moment. So Glenn Copeland dives for the pit lane, so that's 9th place into the pit lane. That does now mean that the car we ride on board with Frank Frostick is up to 10th, and is hunting down 9th Joe Kingston Lee, who is having a bit of an off day really, Joe Kingston Lee. He might be up to 9th at the moment, but that is still the lowest he's been in any of the races so far. His worst last time out was 8th at Snetterton. He'd had a couple of 5ths prior to that, so there's still work to be done for Joe Kingston Lee if he wants to maintain his 4th place in the championship standings. For the lead of the race though, it certainly looks as though since that small mistake we just caught the tail end off from Bobby Simmons, he did redouble his efforts, and the Purple Scepter racing car now is closing in. He was a second adrift of Jamie Peters-Ennis. It's now down to 6/10 of a second, and the gap is being chipped away at and chipped away at and chipped away at as they head onto the brakes and work their way through the Britain's chicane and start to head over Hilltop once more. The battle for the lead, it's not quite formed yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if we see this battle go on race long, but then of course strategy can play a part. We saw Jamie Peters-Ennis at Snetterton dive into the pit lane, or one of the first drivers to head towards the pit lane to take his mandatory pit stop, and then he came out in a load of traffic, cost him stacks of time, but he still managed to finish 5th. So you need to make sure you time your pit stop to perfection. I've got to say, very clever driving from Glenn Copeland. He saw the battle behind him with Joe Kingston Lee and Frank Frostick. He wanted no part of it. He knew he would lose time into the pit lane, so he's lost a fair few positions, down in 14th place, but over a full hour's worth of racing, that's probably the best thing to do. Minimise the time loss. I've got a feeling we had a car off just as we cut to this shot, because I heard a car in very low revs, almost as if it had stopped and made contact with the wall and then continued on. We saw a change of position further up the order between Frank Frostick and Joe Kingston Lee. So Frank Frostick now up into 9th place, Joe Kingston Lee down into 10th. On the right hand side of your screen, you can see Tom O'Farrell. He is closing up on the tail end of David Evans. Through the final corner at Lodge they go, and then over Deer Leap, and Tom O'Farrell, he's looking racy. He really wants that 6th place.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate what happened to him in the early stage of the race. There's too many cars wanting the same piece of tarmac at the same time, and Tom O'Farrell and others sadly were the casualties of that. So he's having to just get his head down and charge really. Just do what you can to try and get yourself back to where you need to be, but running that wide coming out of Old Hall Corner isn't really going to help his cause in that respect. Peter Jones also, that's following him, also running very, very, very wide indeed. So we're almost at the halfway point of this race, 36 minutes of the scheduled 60 to go. Tom O'Farrell still trying to haul himself inside the top 6. The car that he has got firmly in the crosshairs is the Semprini racing car of David Evans, a man who races in the real EnduroKA series, which kicks its way into life for real at Silverstone in about 8 weeks' time. But for the lead of the race, Jamie Peters-Ennis has now been caught. The gap was a second, it was down to 0.6, it's now down to 0.4 of a second, and Bobby Simmons can sniff potentially his 2nd win of the season. He gets a really good run coming out of Britain's onto Hilltop, but that's going to put him on the outside line when they get into towards the braking area for Hilltops. He's got a bit more momentum, but he's not going to be able to clear Jamie Peters-Ennis in time. You see, no, Jamie brakes as late as he can, and yeah, Bobby Simmons knew that it was going to be very difficult to overtake there, and I think discretion the better part of valour at this stage of the race.
Yeah, I've got to say, I picked up on it as soon as we cut to that shot in towards Britain's, and it looked like Bobby Simmons took a slightly wider line in. So on the way out, he could take a much shallower line, pick up the throttle as soon as possible, and make use of his 1.3 litre Duratec engine. And all the way down Hilltop, we knew he was going to be quick, and he just couldn't quite work his way around the outside. And it's not normally something we see. We've seen it a couple of times so far this season. Scott Thorne, I believe, sort of set the pace for that, set the marker at Silverstone, round the outside of a couple of drivers. I think Tom Bunton was one of the drivers to lose out to that on the exit of Maggots. A very impressive move, one of the moves of the season at the moment. Scott Thorne unfortunately not here this evening, but at the moment this lead battle getting very, very close. David Evans managing to work his way back past Tom O'Farrell momentarily. Tom O'Farrell now up into 6th place and hopefully somewhat secure as far as he is concerned, but Bobby Simmons, he's well and truly there, both of them keeping it nice and neat and tidy on the exit of turn 1, down the avenue in towards the very quick left-hander at Cascades, and trying to work his way up the inside. There is Bobby Simmons. He carved the door open, but it will be a much tighter line. Can he keep the momentum on the inside? Maybe. They're very, very even all the way down the straight. A little bit of door-to-door contact. Bobby Simmons has got his nose in front. Jamie Peters-Ennis will have the outside, but we've seen it work. We can see the momentum work around the outside, but will he have the opportunity to show it off? No. Bobby Simmons cuts across the nose. Are we going to see a late move from Jamie Peters-Ennis? He has a look to the inside, and no, Bobby Simmons remains in front, but of course we've got another straight still to go down in towards Hislops, so it's all about that run on the exit of Britain's.
That was textbook stuff from Bobby Simmons. He cued that move up, coming out of Old Hall Corner, had the momentum down the avenue, prized the door open into Cascades. Good driving by Jamie Peters-Ennis, to be fair, because he didn't lean on Bobby Simmons too much. And yeah, finally got the job done, what, about 4 or 5 corners after the move had first started. But now Bobby Simmons is going to have to soak up the pressure. He was 0.6 of a second quicker than Jamie Peters-Ennis on the previous lap. Of course, with the overtake, the gap is going to probably not change a great deal this time as they head down in towards the braking area for the Hislop chicane. All of this is potentially allowing Jack Mace just to close in a little bit, but he's still sort of 5.75 seconds adrift and is very much running on his own, really, in 3rd place. He's not really got anybody to play with. He's about the only car in the race that doesn't have somebody around him. We've got also then James Black and Colin Dunn busy squabbling away for 4th and 5th place, and of course all of these cars at the sharp end all still as yet to pit, and they've all got, what, about 22.5 minutes, Jack, of the pit window still remaining.
Yep, so still plenty of time for this race to change complexion completely. Jamie Peters-Ennis has managed to close up to the tail of Bobby Simmons once again. In towards Lodge Corner they go. A bit of a lock-up, running slightly wide there is Bobby Simmons. The door swings open and Jamie Peters-Ennis retakes the lead. But Bobby Simmons, after making that mistake, potentially got on the throttle slightly earlier, so he might be able to set up the move that we saw a lap ago. In towards turn 1 go our lead duo. Both of them setting very similar times as expected. Jamie Peters-Ennis taking a very, very tight line up to the curb. Bit of nose-to-tail contact there between the pair of them. Jack Mace still sat watching along. He's got a lot of work to do if he wants to catch them up, and once again a bit more contact between the pair of them. Both drivers remain on circuit, which is great to see, which means this battle can continue. But all of this battling has massively allowed Jack Mace to close up. He's gained a second in the space of half a lap. So if they continue to battle like this, just like you said, Mark, Jack Mace is there and he is ready to pick up both places.
If Bobby Simmons thinks he's being held up by Jamie Peters-Ennis, his best bet might be peel off into the pit lane, get your pit stop done, because you're about at the halfway point. It doesn't take long to stick a bit of fuel in these cars. The tyres in the sim are such that you don't need to change them within a 60-minute race. They don't drop off really whatsoever if you set the tyre pressures up at the front end and set your strategy. So if I were Bobby Simmons, if you think you're being held up and you can see that Jack Mace is closing, dive for the pits. Dive for the pits would be my suggestion. Again, that better run though, coming out of the Britain's chicane. This time over Hilltop, he's on the right-hand side of the circuit, which gives him the inside line when they get towards Hislops. Is he going to make it through? You would have thought so. Jamie Peters-Ennis leans on him as much as he dare, but Bobby Simmons has the inside line, heading in towards the Hislops chicane, and he, for the second time in as many laps now, retakes up the lead of the race. But last time he did it, Jack, he might have led midway round through the lap, as again, there's a bit of contact coming out of Knickerbrook, but by the end of the lap, he wasn't the man at the top of the timing screens because Jamie Peters-Ennis had snuck his way through. This time, can he hang on to it?
Well, all will be revealed in the next sort of 20 to 30 seconds. This is more like touring car racing. There's little bits of contact, just enough to force the car in front, slightly off the apex, allow that door to open, and then sneak up the inside. Textbook moves, and it's working. It's producing a great race up at the top, and even more like touring cars. All of this battling has allowed Jack Mace to close up, so we could see 3 cars fighting for the lead. Once again, in towards the final corner, Jamie Peters-Ennis very late on the brakes, very optimistic. Manages to work his way through. Bobby Simmons took to the gravel and the grass and into the pit lane, as you would expect there from Bobby Simmons. So Jamie Peters-Ennis, I'm sure with an asterisk alongside, works his way back into the lead of the race. That will allow Jack Mace to pick up 2nd place. And as far as Jack Mace is concerned, nothing has changed, because he was struggling to find anybody to battle away with. This is Nick Creed and Andrew Greer-Hardy, or sorry, Nick Creed and Gary Preble. By the looks of it. No, I was right first time round. It is Nick Creed trying to work his way past Andrew Greer-Hardy. He was looking towards the outside through the final corner, but diving into the pit lane. Now we're seeing the switchover point of the race. Drivers diving into the pit lane, and drivers maybe trying to allow the fuel to work their way a little bit longer. There is Bobby Simmons. He's retaken to the circuit in an ideal place, I would say. He's not going to really be held up in a battle. There is Tom O'Farrell, of all people. He's sat there in 5th place.
Yeah, so for what is Bobby Simmons now, he's come out behind Peter Jones, whereas we at the moment look at Tom O'Farrell, who's there in 5th place, and hot on the heels of both Colin Dunn and James Black. So this is 3rd, 4th and 5th places all together, all of which still of course need to stop. So the leading car that has stopped is Bobby Simmons, the purple sector car down there in 8th position at the moment. But Tom O'Farrell, great recovery drive from him, picking cars off along the way. He's gained other places as a result of pit stops for others. Big leap over the curves for James Black. That really unsettled the car in 3rd place, has allowed Colin Dunn to close on him. And Tom O'Farrell is the man that has got the plumb seat, really, just looking at the squabble that's going on ahead. And should they trip over each other, will there be any contact, he'll be in prime position to try and sneak his way through. You can see just how close they get to those tyre curbs on the inside through the Hislop chicane. And then start to build the speed again as they head up Clay Hill and underneath the bridge in Sim, the bridge which at the moment has been taken down at Alton Park in real life and is undergoing refurbishment before the start of the season. But 3 of them absolutely together, 3rd, 4th and 5th. We've got 27.5 minutes remaining.
Yeah, we say it every week, and I think we will continue to. This race, it goes far too fast. Maybe in 2 weeks' time we'll have a different view on it, because we've got 90 minutes, an extra half an hour worth of racing at Brands Hatch. Now we're seeing Bobby Simmons trying to work his way through and past the 2 cars in front to minimise any time loss. Can he do 2 at once, heading in towards the final corner? Manages to get 1, can't quite get the other. So that is the number 25 machine of Peter Jones continuing to stay in front of Bobby Simmons. David Evans has almost done the same as well. They crossed the line on the right hand side of your screen. Tom O'Farrell into 5th place as Colin Dunn has dived into the pit lane. So too has Peter Jones, and Bobby Simmons, after all of that, he managed to work his way up the inside of 2 cars. And I was going to say he's only got 1 left to battle, but it looks like he might have just worked his way in front once again. Yes, he has.
Yes, he has, yeah. So finally works his way through and past David Evans. So that's another place gain now for Bobby Simmons. He is up into 5th position. 2 minutes 28 from him on his outlap is not a slow outlap really at all in these cars, but we'll look now that he's settled in as to what he's doing relative to the cars that are ahead of him, because remember, he is in 5th place on the road, but is the only car in the top 5 that has stopped. Jamie Peters-Ennis, Jack Mace, James Black, Tom O'Farrell, all of which still need to stop at this stage. So we're looking at Tom O'Farrell at the moment, running in 4th position. James Black is the car that lies directly ahead of him, the Graves Motorsport car. And both of them using as much as the curb as they dare through the Britain chicane. We see them using a bit more of the grass on the way out. Tom O'Farrell, you can just see lifting a little bit of the dirt up into the air there. Further down through the order, this is Glenn Copeland, who's had a very, very busy race, Glenn Copeland. I think every time we've had a quick look at the Treasy Pop Motorsport car, he's been fully involved in a squabble with somebody, has he not? This time, it's Alex Saville that sits ahead.
Yeah, so he's had a busy old race, says Glenn Copeland. He has already been into the pit lane, so he doesn't have that to worry about. So any position he makes here should be a position that he will keep until the end of the race, barring any mistakes. But of course, this is the last thing he wants. He's been into the pit lane. He's thinking, right, let's just make this second stage of the race as quick as possible, and maybe make up a few positions now to make up even more later on once everybody else has been into the pit lane. At the moment, Jamie Peters-Ennis is still leading the race, but Jack Mace only 3.9 seconds away. He is well and truly reeling in our race leader. James Black still remains in third place, but Tom O'Farrell only 0.3 away at the moment. We mentioned this at the start of the race. Tom O'Farrell and Frank Frostig are the drivers to watch at the moment, both of them proving us right. Tom O'Farrell knocking on the door of a podium on track. I think once everything is said and done in terms of strategy, that could be a battle for 5th place, or for 4th place, pardon me. But this battle that we're looking at now is what we just mentioned. That's Tom O'Farrell fighting for, on track, may I remind you, 3rd place. Of course, we've still got the top 4 yet to pit, so there's still lots of dropping and changing to be done. But at the moment, Bobby Simmons, he's had a dream second stage of the race. He's been into the pit lane. He's already back up into 5th.
Yeah, it really has worked well for him, and he'll be hoping that he can leapfrog these cars that are still squabbling out on circuit. Now, looking at the pace of Tom O'Farrell, his last lap was a 2 minute 16.4. The cars ahead of him, 2 minutes 16.8, 2 minutes 16.7, 2 minutes 16.7. So Tom O'Farrell is lapping quicker than the cars that are ahead of him on the road. Glenn Copeland, a bit of a mistake coming out of Old Hall Corner there. He gets a little bit sideways. That's going to mean that he might come under a little bit more pressure. Nick Creed is looking to try and dive his way through. We've also got trying all the way around the outside. The number 38 car, there's a bit of contact there, and that is going to be a spin, I'm afraid, for Alex Saville, and a big accident in the end. And by the look of things, that is going to be problems for Glenn Copeland and Alex Saville as a result of that contact coming out of Cascades.
Yeah, Glenn Copeland is destined for retirement. I think after that one he has returned to the pit lane, and we may see no further progress from himself. He might retake to the circuit if he can do so within the next 23 minutes. Back to Tom O'Farrell, however, he is well and truly there, only half a second away from James Black now. Bobby Simmons there in the background. Like you say, he is not only lapping quicker than all the cars in front of him, he's lapping quicker than any other car on circuit at the moment is Tom O'Farrell, pardon me, but Bobby Simmons not too far away, so we could see what is potentially a battle for the podium indeed between Tom O'Farrell and Bobby Simmons. 4.1 seconds now the lead margin. That has come back out between Jamie Peters-Ennis and Jack Mace. Further down the order, it's slowly started to separate. Alex Saville and Nathan Down getting fairly close together. So too is Greg Giles. That's the battle for 15th place, heading in towards Hislops now, but running very, very wide on the way in. Just manages to avoid the tyre wall, just manages to avoid the tyre bale also. But Alex Saville, after we just looked at him, thinking that he'd be fighting a 3-car battle, he's managed to fall back into the clutches of what has now evolved into a different 3-car battle. Alex Saville, James Wakefield and Alex Walker, but Nathan Down, he is still under pressure from Greg Giles. There is James Wakefield, the meat in the sandwich at the moment. Alex Saville, he's had to go from defend to defend, but this time it's with 2 different cars.
Yeah, it's been brilliant squabbling all the way down through the order. We've not picked up on too much at the back end, but yeah, you look at it now, James Wakefield in his subtly re-liveried car for this weekend, thanks to positive perception of Mark's efforts. It's now running sort of silver foil almost across the bottom of it. He is looking to try and squeeze his way through and ahead of Alex Walker. The two of them side by side as they head round through Lodge, and side by side on the way out as well. And this is 4 positions way down through the order. This is for 18th and 19th, as into the pit lane comes James Wakefield. Mark Cockerton is also in over the course of that particular lap, so we'll go back to what's going on at the sharp end, and this is the battle for what will be 3rd position once more. Tom O'Farrell is still hot on the heels of James Black, who's running in 2nd place. Nothing to choose between the pair of them. They are matching each other for pace at this stage, and off and into the gravel trap, I'm afraid. That's Greg Giles. That looked as though that was Cascades.
Yes, it was indeed, and I've got a feeling that was it Alex Walker or Alex Saville that made contact? And of course, we're now looking at this battle. Tom O'Farrell has gone from 4th to 3rd, but that overtake was made in the pit lane as our race leader Jamie Peters-Ennis has been into the pit lane. He's retaken to the circuit in 4th place, some 3 seconds in front of Bobby Simmons. So all of that clean air that Jamie Peters-Ennis had has massively paid off. He's gained 3 seconds on what was only about 3/10, but there we go. Tom O'Farrell up the inside at Druid to honk of the horn to celebrate, but is that premature celebration? Because by the looks of that, James Black is desperate to get that move remade, looks up the inside, a very quick look, but decides maybe not this lap. Still pit stops to be made for our top three of Jack Mace, Tom O'Farrell and James Black. Do we see any of them peel into the pit lane this time? Over dearly we go. No, both of them remain out. So too does Jack Mace. Jamie Peters-Ennis, he will be hoping that the top three peel into the pit lane before he catches onto the coattails of them, but you never know. It could be a slight mistake from Tom O'Farrell or James Black, which means that Jamie Peters-Ennis gets held up, and Bobby Simmons, he's back into the fold and fighting for the race lead.
Yeah, you just don't know what way it's going to go. We've got, 20 minutes of the race remaining, 10 minutes of the pit stop window still remaining, and we still have no idea who might scoop up the spoils in round 4 of the 2023 EnduroKA Winter Sim Series here at Alton Park. Now, for Jack Mace, traffic just up the road. Now, it's the first time we've seen the front runners getting in towards traffic, so that might just allow Tom O'Farrell and James Black to begin to close in what is a 4.3 second gap between themselves and that car there, which is Jack Mace, who leads the way. It's the Hastings car, isn't it, which they are catching up with, and I'm guessing, is that Costa C, is it? I'm guessing that they're going to catch up with, will be the first of those to lap.
I think it's Callum Perfect. I'm guessing Costa C.
Yes, it will be. Yes, it
has, yeah, I think Costa has returned to the pit lane, or he's jumbled up in the mid-pack. But of course, this is Jack Mace, who is yet to be, who is yet to take to the pit lane to serve his mandatory pit stop that he's catching traffic. But if we just very quickly add that up, 6 or 7 seconds back is Jamie Peters-Ennis. We've still got 20 minutes of the race remaining, so even the drivers that have been into the pit lane could slowly start to catch laps traffic, and that could massively flip the race on its head, something that, like you say, we haven't seen so far this season. So yet another aspect of the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series that has shown its face. So still lots to think about. You've got all the strategy, all of the cars around you to worry about, making sure you worry about your own laps, track limits, and now traffic as well. It's a busy old job behind the wheel of these KAs, as I'm sure you know all too well. But Andrew Greer-Hardy now on the tail of David Evans and Frank Frosting.
Yeah, I mean, when I get out of the KAs for real, having raced them, I'm in a muck sweat. It was exactly the same just in the sim a couple of weekends ago at Snetterton when I was racing in this series. And Andrew Greer-Hardy is the man we ride on board with now. He's running 10th in the race. The car ahead of him is David Evans, who I thought for a moment there was going to have a look at the inside of Frank Frosting. You see the two of them slide wide, and as soon as you slide in these cars, look at the momentum that's been lost by both David Evans and Frank Frosting. That's allowing Andrew Greer-Hardy to pick one of them off. You can see in the mirrors he's got past David Evans. He then tries to brake as late as he can. He's going to try and cut back, is he, on Frank Frosting as they head in towards Lodge? No, he can't. He then needs to watch his mirrors because all of a sudden he's got David Evans back alongside him. And, well, that was a place gained and the place lost within the same corner. So Andrew Greer-Hardy dives for the pit lane this time through. He will drop out of the top 10.
Yeah, again, clever driving though. He's jumped out of that battle into the pit lane to try and minimise as much time loss as possible. There is Peter Jones, who is just got a couple of cars up the road. That's David Evans and Frank Frosting, the battle we saw just a moment ago. Jack Mace has managed to work his way through and past Callum Perfect, the lap traffic. Then it's Tom O'Farrell and James Black will be the next couple of drivers to work their way through. Jamie Peters-Ennis has still got a bit of time before he gets there. Peter Jones has only taken, 3/10 out of Bobby Simmons has only taken 3/10 out of Jamie Peters-Ennis over the past couple of laps. Go on, Mark.
Tom O'Farrell, fastest lap of the race last time through. We did have Bobby Simmons on a 2:15.875. 3/1000ths of a second quicker went Tom O'Farrell that time through.
Yeah, I think Peter Jones still just about with the fastest lap of the race, but to do what Tom O'Farrell has done at 2 minute 15.872 at this stage of the race, bear in mind, with traffic up the road, and sure, the car will be getting slightly lighter, but like you mentioned, tyres do evolve very slightly and then can potentially fall away. Very, very good stuff from Tom O'Farrell just to show that pace, not only throughout the race, but consistently as well. He's been very, very quick throughout the race up until this point. David Evans in the Semprini racing car losing out that time to Peter Jones. Peter Jones will have the outside. Can David Evans work his way back up through the inside? No, he can't. So down into 9th place there is David Evans. We had a chat with Mark Raddenbury at the start of the stream. He's in the YouTube chat now saying, how is there only 20 minutes of the race remaining? Even less now, 16. Couldn't agree more. It goes far too fast, and it's great to see we can have a look right the way down towards the tail end of the order, and we've still got great racing. This is Nathan Down just about working his way up the inside of Alex Saville, or has he? That's going to be side by side into Britain, something you don't really want to see. Almost contact between the pair of them. Can they get it slowed down? They remain side by side. Sideways on the brakes is Nathan Down. Gets the car slowed down, and then he's got it all to do again as they go over Hilltop and down towards Islops.
Yeah, Nathan certainly not down and out as he tries to work his way through the order. Change for position there. That is Peter Jones, who's managed to sneak up to 7th place and ahead of Frank Frostick. But Peter Jones, having just gained the place, is going to dive into the pit lane, and that's going to hand it straight back to Frank Frostick again at the wheel of the number 32 car, who's still being shadowed by the lighter blue Semprini car in the hands of David Evans that sits behind. So this is 7th and 8th position at the moment. Gary Preble in 9th place hasn't really made the inroads I would have thought. He got sort of tangled up in the early stages of the race, Jack, and for a man who has, in the 2 races in which he's competed, finished 1st and 2nd, he couldn't do the Silverstone round because he was away at an awards dinner, but he hasn't made the recovery drive from his lap 1 incident compared to Tom O'Farrell, because Preble's now 9th, Tom O'Farrell is up to 2nd.
Yeah, he's been pushing hard as Tom O'Farrell, and he's been very, very quick throughout the race. But Frank Frostick, of course, like you mentioned, he was at the tail end of the order at the start of this. He's fought his way heroically through a raft of KAs and has found himself in 7th place. No mean feat by any stretch of the imagination there from Frank Frostick. David Evans is still there and maybe being the thorn in the side at this point. Frank Frostick still yet to pit, however. So too do the top 3 of Jack Mace, Tom O'Farrell and James Black. Jamie Peters-Ennis is catching the top 3. Bobby Simmons still 3 seconds away from Peters-Ennis. So there's still a lot that can change, but with only 4 minutes of the pit window remaining, I've got a feeling that will slowly start to come to light in the next couple of laps.
Yeah, they'll need to pit. If they don't pit at the end of this lap, they probably need to be safe that they pit at the end of the next one. Otherwise, the window may well be closed by the look of things. So Frank Frostick on the left of your screen's under pressure for 7th place from David Evans. On the right of your screen, Glenn Copeland has got cars queuing up behind him, which includes the likes of... I was going to say behind Glenn Copeland. Sorry, apologies. Is going to be Callum Perfect, who is the car that's been lapped. A car in the background just goes off and into the gravel trap. And we've also had, by the look of things now, a change also. Frank Frostick, who was ahead of David Evans, all of a sudden now has lost out. So Frank Frostick is going to find himself back out of 7th, down to 8th, and still is as yet to pit.
Yeah, James Black, speaking of pitting, James Black and Tom O'Farrell into the pit lane. Now we're seeing the gaps change ever more. Jack Mace remains out on the circuit, so he's left himself very little time to dive into the pit lane as Jack Mace. We'll try and figure out whereabouts he is on circuit. There is James Black returning to the circuit into what is 4th place on the road. I'm expecting that to be 3rd place after all is said and done. Jack Mace, he's only going in towards the Shell Oils hairpin. He's got 55 seconds to get round to the pit lane. So either he needs a few hundred more horsepower, or he could potentially pick up a penalty for pitting outside the pit window.
Is it not 10 minutes before the window closes, isn't it? Rather than 12 we'd be at, so he should be able to do it.
Well, of course,
he pits at the end of this lap, so he's got to pit, Jack Mace, at the end of this lap, because the pit window closes with 10 minutes to go. We've got 12 and a half minutes still remaining. Tom O'Farrell now, look who he's bottled up behind. He's now bottled up behind Gary Preble, and Gary Preble, I think, will let him go through. Gary's had a bit of an off day by comparison to what we would expect from him. Tom O'Farrell just makes sure that he runs him out a little bit wide coming out of the Shell Oils corner, and will now set his sights firmly on trying to close back in on David Evans that lies ahead. So Tom O'Farrell pushing hard at this stage. Jack Mace, is he going to pit at the end of this lap? But we'll find out, because he's just heading the race leader up towards Druids. But as we say, he really needs to be in at the end of this lap, otherwise if he stays out, the window will be closed by the time he comes around next time. And there you go, on the right of your screens, there is Jack Mace heading around through Druids now.
Yeah, we of course would expect him into the pit lane, like you say. Jamie Peters-Ennis 5.3 seconds adrift of our race leader. Bobby Simmons on this lap alone has taken 6/10 out of Jamie Peters-Ennis. So with only 11 minutes of the race remaining, if he continues at current pace, we could see a battle for the lead once again. Jack Mace indeed over to the right hand side of the circuit to take his mandatory pit stop. On the left hand side of your screen, you can see Tom O'Farrell trying to work his way back past David Evans. He does so on the way into Druids. Does he run slightly wide? No, he gets the moment, or gets the corner nicely squared off, comes straight back over to defend, heading in towards the penultimate corner. And we'll see where Jack Mace comes out in all of this, because this will be the last place we want to see him. I've got a feeling there was going to be contact. Tom O'Farrell sideways in towards the final corner, over the road, into the gravel. Furious honk of the horn, which means Peter Jones, David Evans and Gary Preble all go through. I think Gary Preble had a bit of a moment heading in towards the final corner, so that massive battle that we saw has all fallen away. Gary Preble, or Tom O'Farrell, pardon me, making his feelings known well and truly, not only to the drivers in front, I'd say pretty much half of Chester at that the rate he was going, but Jamie Peters-Ennis does indeed re-inherit the lead, only by 2.2 seconds. We've seen them 3 seconds apart on the lap prior, and this time Bobby Simmons, he's absolutely flying.
Yeah, Bobby Simmons at the moment, the man who was just 1 single point adrift of James Black in the championship coming into this race. Well, at the moment, Bobby Simmons is going to run in 2nd place. James Black, his main championship rival and the championship leader by that single point, down in 4th place, and will have a swing of the championship lead potentially. Remember, it's 25 points for a win, 24 if you're 2nd, 23rd if you're 3rd, and so on from there. It diminishes by a point. There is an extra point also, Jack, is there not? Now, is that fastest lap on pole that gets the extra point? Can't recall.
I'm not 100% sure either. I know there is an extra point bouncing around somewhere, and somebody that will be obviously furious at what has just happened is Tom O'Farrell, but he is still in front of Joe Kingston Lee. Both of those drivers on 60 points, so they were tied coming into round 4. So at the moment, whilst he's only 2 or 3 places in front, Tom O'Farrell is still outscoring his championship rival Colin Dunn. He will be more than happy, sat 5th in the championship, 5th on the road, and currently outscoring everybody that is really sort of fighting with him in the championship, bar James Black. And it is the fastest lap that gets the extra point. So at the moment, I believe that's Peter Jones picking up the extra point. Yes, 2-minute 15.782. So Peter Jones not only picking up good race points, if it were to finish at the moment, he would pick up that extra point as well for the fastest lap, unless we see some spurs of wisdom from somewhere else down in the order. Jack Mace has picked up 3rd place after his mandatory pit stop. Bobby Simmons now within 2 seconds of our race leader, just under 9 minutes of the race to go.
Yeah, and Bobby Simmons was half a second quicker than Jamie Peters-Ennis on that previous lap. So we look at Jack Mace, who runs there in 3rd position. Jack Mace, who had a bit of an off weekend last time out at Snetterton. Also running very wide there was Alex Walker. That was heading in towards the Hislop chicane where he ran wide, and that means that has dropped him back into the clutches again of Frank Frostick. So this is going to be 15th position and 16th position, the 2 cars heading up towards Druids now. Gary Preble, following his incident heading in towards Lodge when he made contact with Tom O'Farrell, is now looking to try and work his way past the number 37 car, which is David Evans. So David Evans running in 7th position for Stemprini Racing. Didn't quite get the apex right heading in towards Cascades. Gary Preble will have a bit more momentum on the way out. Can he utilise that as they head along the straight and up towards Island Bend? Well, he jinks out from behind David Evans. He's got the inside line to the bottom section of Lakeside. He's going to have the inside line as they head round through Island Bend. Gets the job done before they even get to Shell Oils. Another place gain there, Gary Preble up into 7th.
Yep, great move there from Gary Preble, one of the drivers that we always see up towards the pointy end of the order. Like you said, somewhat not, I wouldn't say off the pace, but off of his usual pace. I would say.
Like.
Yes, yeah, definitely. But 7th place, still picking up good points, and he is catching the cars in front. One of which being Peter Jones, who he manages to work his way through and passed on the exit of Britain. So a slightly poor run through the chicane there from Peter Jones, who may lose out to David Evans in the Semprini car as well. Can David keep the car up the inside on the brakes? The car stopped on the exit of turn 1, Glenn Copeland. He did retake to the circuit, but has decided to call it a night. So back to the pit lane goes Glenn. At the moment, David Evans and Peter Jones fighting away side by side through Knickerbrook, heading up Clay Hill. I think they will just about be side by side once again. But David Evans has managed to keep his nose in front this time. Bobby Simmons still taking time out of Jamie Peters-Ennis. Just under 7 minutes of the race remaining now. Peter Jones and David Evans still side by side in towards Druids Corner. Can Peter Jones keep the car stable on the exit? Yes, he can. He looks for the cutback and he's almost there. Are they going to be side by side in towards the penultimate corner? No, that is David Evans in front for now.
Only just though for now, but now Peter Jones gets a better run down the latter section of the straight. He's got the inside line as they head in towards Lodge Corner, so Peter Jones finally gets the job done. He's up into 7th place, needs to keep it neat and tidy on the exit, otherwise David Evans will have more momentum as they head over the crest at Deer Leap and back up towards the braking area for turn number 1 again, which is the right-hander at Old Hall, but I think he's just that little bit too far back this time to try anything at Old Hall. Good entry though to Old Hall Corner, get a clean exit, carry the momentum out of the corner, and he might have half a chance as they head along the avenue and down towards Cascades, but again they match each other for pace as they head down towards Cascades, and this David Evans going to try on the outside of Cascades to try and come back up the inside. No, not quite. I don't think, again, he's going to quite have the momentum. Great onboard view, though, on the right of your screen. David Evans maybe with a little bit more of the momentum. He's trying to draw himself alongside. He's on the left-hand side as they head up towards the top section at Lakeside. They'll head up towards Island Bend. They're still side by side. David Evans just with his nose ahead. Having lost the place, he's regained it, but Peter Jones is trying to brave it out around the outside at Island to get the inside line for Shell Oil's corner. He breaks as late as he can. They are still side by side round through Shell Oil's corner, and finally, at least for the moment, he hangs on to the place, and even more so now, I'm afraid, that David Evans runs wide coming out to Shell Oil's corner. Finally, Peter Jones can breathe a sigh of relief.
For now, there's still 5 minutes of the race remaining, and as we've seen at all 3 previous rounds, a little mistake like that can become ever more costly. And of course, David Evans, whilst he has dropped away some, Tom O'Farrell is now there trying to pick up yet another place. There is Bobby Simmons. He's dropped away once again. It was up to 2 seconds for a brief moment, now dipping back below 2 seconds. Jamie Peters-Ennis is up the road. It could be helping Bobby Simmons, but also hindering Bobby Simmons that he can see the car in front. Some drivers like to see what they're chasing. Other drivers slowly start to judge themselves and think, oh, he's quicker than me there, I want to go quicker, and that's when the mistakes come. On the right hand side of your screen, you can still see Tom O'Farrell fighting away with David Evans. He's getting closer and closer and closer. Into Druids once again they go. This is the battle for 8th place. Using a bit more curb there is Tom O'Farrell than the car in front, and that is probably why it just hooks the car in. That's going to be time lost for David Evans. Not too much, however, and with 4 minutes of the race remaining now, everything is far from settled.
Very much so, yeah. No matter where you look, we've still got fights going on. Probably the only place that is settled is 3rd place again, because before we'd cycled through all the pit stop, Jack Mace was running on his own in 3rd place, and that very much looks to be the case again. Tom O'Farrell looking to try and apply the pressure to David Evans. Has he got enough momentum? Well, Old Hall Corner is not really in the KA's an overtaking spot, but we know Tom O'Farrell is quick coming out of Old Hall, because we've seen on a couple of occasions what he can do on the run down in towards Cascades. But David Evans matches him for pace as they flick their way through the little right-hander at Denton's and then down in towards the main Cascades, hook the curb up on the inside line, try and get a good run coming off the corner is what Tom O'Farrell will look to do, but he hasn't quite got enough momentum coming out of the corner, so he'll sit back behind what is David Evans again, try and pick up a bit of a tow as they head down Lakeside and up towards the daunting left-hander at Island Bend. Is he going to try and jink out and sneak up the inside at Shell Oils? No, David Evans covers that off, so if Tom O'Farrell wants to try and gain the place, he's going to have to get on the throttle here nice and early and see whether he can get the run heading up in towards the braking area for Britons. And again, isn't quite going to work at this stage, and all of a sudden these two are holding each other up, and it's just allowing us in the car ahead, the 7th place car you can see in the distance, Peter Jones, to pull away.
Yeah, but a quick look there from Tom O'Farrell forces the defensive line from David Evans, and sweeping up the inside goes Tom O'Farrell. Very clever driving from Tom. That has promoted him up into 8th place. And I was going to bring it up last time through. Jamie Peters-Ennis 2 minutes 16.0. Bobby Simmons at 2 minutes 16.3, so slower. But this lap, potentially a mistake from Jamie Peters-Ennis through sector 1, because it's come down from 2 seconds to 1.3 seconds. And I would say coming towards the line in a few moments' time is our race leader. Are we going to be going on to the final lap or the penultimate lap? We're averaging around about a 2 minutes 16. Coming towards the line now go both of our lead drivers. I've got a feeling this will be the last lap of the race, because they're crossing the line now and we've got 2 minutes 10 seconds. So yeah, by the looks of that, this will be the final lap of the race. A very quick lap last time through from Bobby Simmons at 2 minute 15.745. How does that relate to Peter Jones with what did he set? A 2 minute 15.782, so a fastest lap of the race from Bobby Simmons on the onto the penultimate lap of the race. That was set on the final lap of the race now. 1 second separates the leader, and a little mistake like that, running slightly wide, that could really throw everything the way of Bobby Simmons. I can't really watch because there's 8 tenths separating them now and only 1 lap remaining.
Yeah, Bobby Simmons is throwing everything at it, including the kitchen sink at this stage. Now, if Jamie Peters-Ennis has anything left in reserve, he's going to have to try and muster it now, because Bobby Simmons has not as yet given up his aspirations on trying to scoop up his second win, I should say, of the season, because he won round 2 at Silverstone on the national circuit. And remember, Bobby Simmons is only a point point off the championship lead, and his main championship rivals are all going to finish behind him. So either way, for Bobby Simmons, even if he doesn't win, he's still surely, subject to official confirmation, highly likely when the maths are done, to pick up the championship lead. Now, he is still, I would say, a little bit too far behind Jamie Peters-Ennis, because as they come over Hilltop and in towards the Hislop chicane for the final time, Jack, there's still over a second between them. So it's reliant on a mistake from Jamie Peters-Ennis in these final few corners, but we did see one a lap or two ago, didn't we? So there's still a possibility, there's still a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't rule it out. He has lost yet more time heading through the chicane and in towards Knickerbrook. So 1.3 seconds now, the gap between the pair of them. Jack Mace, I'm sure will be surprised to hear if everything remains as is. We'll get him in the commentary box for an interview. He'll be surprised to hear there were other cars out on circuit, because he hasn't really seen any apart from the grid and the few laps that preceded that. But Jamie Peters-Ennis, heading towards the final corner, 1.2 seconds to the good. There's 10 seconds on the clock. It's going to be tight towards the line. We'll wait to see whether the checkered flag is waved. I've got a feeling it will be, but Jamie Peters-Ennis over dearly for what I believe will be the final time towards the line now, just about. Jamie Peters-Ennis wins round 4 of the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series here at Oulton Park. Bobby Simmons, a heroic drive, finishes in second place. Jack Mace, somewhat of a quiet race, but comes home to round out the podium. And James Black towards the line, a flick of the handbrake and very, very sideways and almost backwards at one point. There we go, across the line in 4th place. Colin Dunn, very respectable 5th place, yet more points on the board. Very consistent season so far from Colin Dunn. Gary Preble will come towards the line to pick up 6th place. Peter Jones, hard-fought race, will finish in 7th. And Tom O'Farrell, after a sterling comeback drive and a bit of a knock in the closing stages of the race, will finish in 8th.
Yeah, then it's David Evans who'll finish in 9th place ahead of Nick Creed, who should be coming over the start-finish line now. He will complete the top 10. Andrew Greer-Hardy finishes in 11th place. Joe Kingston Lee, the man who was 4th in the championship standings, only 12th position by the look of things as he heads over the start-finish line. So a finish for him, but not really what he would have wanted at the beginning of the race. And the fights still go on towards the checkered flag, as Alex Walker's running in 15th place. Frank Frosting almost into the tail end of him as they came up in towards Lodge. He threw everything out the back of the car, all of the anchors, to try and avoid the incident, and will just finish short. So it's going to be Mark Cockton, Craig Giles, Alex Walker, Frank Fosdick, James Wakefield, Alex Saville, Nathan Down and Callum Perfect will be the top 20. That's the way they'll finish, Jack.
Yeah, so a brilliant race, even including the bits of contact, and didn't really know where to look, because there was definitely lots to look at. And I've got to say, our brilliant producer Dan kept us very well informed. There was lots to look at, lots of different aspects of the race to keep track of as well, because of course we had the pit strategy. And then we had, of course, the first safety car of the season. Whether that played a massive part that early on in the race, I don't know. Maybe if without that safety car, we could have seen a completely different race.
And what we have seen now is, of course, 4 races in, 4 different winners. And of those drivers we're going to chat to shortly, Jamie Peters-Ennis, Bobby Simmons and Jack Mace, Bobby is the only driver that's finished on the podium so far this year. For the others, their first trip to the podium. Yeah,
so it's going to be quite an emotional podium, I'm sure, and quite an important one as well, because a lot of drivers finished out of their usual positions, and that means a lot of drivers have picked up and inherited those points that others have maybe missed out on. So it's we obviously showed the graphic at the start of the stream when of the points coming into round 4. They will look completely different going out of round 4, of course, subject to official confirmation and everything. And there's still the results are still very much provisional. But at the moment, I don't really know where to look in the championship, because, of course, Bobby Simmons, he was second place in the championship. He's also now in our commentary box. He finished the race in second place. It was hard fought, but Bobby Simmons, congratulations, second place.
Thank you very much. How was the race from your view?
Busy, as per always. That's just what we've come to expect. There was lots to look at. And what do you think separated yourself and Jamie today? Because it looked like very little as the race went on. And it seemed like pit strategy was where that the time between the pair of you built up. But you definitely threw everything at it just to get that time down in the closing stages.
Yeah, made a few mistakes on the last lap. Made a horrible mistake about 2 or 3 laps after I pitted, which would have put me in front of Jamie, which really annoyed me. But the thing that separated us was just a little bit of contact in the middle of the race. Need to look back before I say my opinion on it. But it was a very good race up to that point.
It seemed. Oh, go on, Mark.
Go on, no, you go.
I was going to say it seemed like you had the overall pace and the lap on lap pace, but what would you say was the biggest factor in the race? Was it a little bit of traffic? Was it even the safety car, of course, first one of the season? Was it the strategy? Like, what would you say it was that really flipped the race around?
Definitely tyre wear. Throughout the second stint, we were doing 5.8s, 5.9s in the first stint, sorry. And in the second stint, it was down to 16.3s. And then you had to really concentrate and really push and get the car on groove. And that only come once the fuel load went, and I overfueled a little bit, so it really didn't come back to me at the end of the race. But yeah, that's sort of what happened.
Wow, Mark.
I mean, but Bobby, subject to obviously the official results when they come out, but if we look at the way you finished on track tonight, because that's all we can discuss at the moment. Second place, you're only a point off the championship lead. 4 of you covered by 10 points at the sharp end of the championship. You finished ahead of all of your championship rivals. You might have finished second on the road, but I think you got fastest lap as well. So it puts you in a strong position, doesn't it, as we head to Brands Hatch for the 90-minute race?
Yes, considering the championship, I'm very happy with how the championship should look now. I haven't done the complete maths in my head, but it should look with me on top, hopefully.
No, well done, well done.
Oh, thank you very much, Bobby. Once again, congratulations on second place, and of course, 2 weeks' time we head to Brands Hatch for a 90-minute race. So we'll look forward to seeing you there. Before we let you go, anybody you'd like to shout out?
Yes, everyone at Maffle, especially David, Liam, Rory, James, and Rachel for helping me out just in my general day-to-day job. Everyone at Purple Sector for giving me the chance and for letting me have the livery in the game. My mum, my dad, and especially my nan, which has been watching all of the races so far, and she loves it. So, good to give her a good show.
Great stuff, Bobby. Go on, Dad.
No, we can't forget Nan, can we?
No, absolutely not.
Well, thank you for joining us in the commentary box, Bobby, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Brands Hatch.
Cool, see you then.
Cheers, bye-bye. So, Bobby there. Let's get Jack Mace into the commentary box. Mark, he's all yours.
Yeah, Jack, brilliant race from you. You had a bit of an off at Snetterton a couple of weeks ago. Back to the kind of pace we'd expect from you. And congratulations, your first podium of the season.
It's been a long time coming. Snetterton was nothing short of a bit of a disaster, miles off the pace. But I said coming into the season, sort of half jokingly, that Alton and Brands were going to be the strong circuits. And, you know, it obviously took a lot of stuff happening on lap 1. But yeah, no, really clean. It was obviously, it was a little bit of a nice Saturday drive on my side, but you can probably tell I'm over the moon with that result. Absolutely over the moon.
And so you should be, because we've seen some fantastically close racing in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series so far. But it did seem as though the first part of the race, you sort of, after a few laps, found yourself on your own in third, and the second part of the race, again, you found yourself very much on your own in third again.
Yep, that's pretty much a summary. I feel like I've been involved in a fair bit of the action in the first 3 races, and whilst there's nothing more fun than close, hard-fought racing like we have here, it was a nice change of pace, as it were, to just have my own thing. It was, I had Peter behind me early on after the restart. I got a bit lucky with the safety car pulling off. It caught myself off guard. So the leaders were already gone, and obviously Bobby and Jamie, they were miles quicker than me in qualifying. So I knew that really third was the best that I was going to be able to get at that moment in time, barring any incidents. I saw off in the distance at Lodge, they had their coming together. But from my side of things, just as my race, really nice. A really nice drive around Alton Park, which is a phenomenal circuit. I have no complaints.
Junior?
I've got to say, it seemed like one of those races. I mentioned it while we were live. You'd be surprised to hear that there was anybody else out on circuit with you, because around about 10 laps in, you were just in your own little bubble. There was loads of time in front, loads of time behind, and you're in third place, so not a bad place to be. And it almost stayed that way throughout the entire race. So from your perspective, I'd imagine at points it got quite samey and lap on lap, but 2 weeks' time, we go to Brands Hatch. I don't think there'll be any danger of you being left alone on circuit. A much shorter circuit. We're there for an extra 30 minutes, of course, at the first 90-minute race of the season. So what are your thoughts going into that one?
It's my home race. It's the track that's only half an hour down the road from me. It's going to be a really good race, that one will. The long circuits have been nice, but something like Silverstone, where the track's shorter, there's a lot less time to be lost on the long straights. It's something that's really going to suit this particular car. We've seen that in real life with the IndyCar 500. That was half a second at the line last year after 9 or so hours of racing. So in 90 minutes, I can imagine it's going to be incredibly close throughout, the vast majority of the field.
Well, all will be revealed, I'm sure, in 2 weeks' time. You had a lot of support in the YouTube chat this evening, as per most rounds. I can't lie, your name is definitely one of the ones that pops up the most. So we may as well give you the opportunity to shout everybody out. Anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, no, thanks to the guys on the Requiem Discord. It's a bunch of very good mates who've got me through some pretty tough times over the course of the past few years. So massive shout out to them. I'm really grateful that they've all come along. As another shout out to the EnduroKA guys themselves, who have been putting on a fantastic series in real life. And this has been some of the best sim racing that I've ever had in the past 12 years I've been doing this hobby. So it's really thankful to those ones, and anyone else that's been shouting me out and, and cheering me on. I made it, guys. I did it. I got there. Took a little while, but we're here now.
Great stuff, Jack. It's been great to talk to you. Congratulations for your first trip to the podium this season, and here's to maybe a couple more on the final 2 rounds of this season. So thank you for joining us in the commentary box, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers, Jack. Final driver to bring in, of course, it's our race winner. The first time we've spoken to him this season, Jamie Peters-Ennis. Welcome to the commentary box. You've won round 4 of the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series.
Yeah, that was hard. That was really hard. I mean, these cars, the guys who created the mod have done a fabulous job, because they are so hard to drive, because you've got to keep the momentum up. Bobby, credit to him, he drove fantastically. He actually had the legs on me. I'm really sorry for what happened at Lodge. I was actually trying to give the place back, but then he decided to pit. So I was like, well, what do I do? And I just thought, well, I've just got to keep going. But yeah, sort of held off to the end. But yeah, that was a hard one. I was praying for not having to do another lap, because I had no front tyres left.
Yeah, we've heard that tyre management was a big one, and tyre degradation throughout the race was a big one. The first time this season, of course, the first round that's had a safety car. What would you say was the most sort of integral part for that through the race, either in your favour or against others, that allowed you to get the win?
I mean, a lot of the guys like like the car to sort of move around. I'm the complete opposite. I absolutely hate it. I mean, I prefer it to be really pointy. So I sort of, when people say to me, I'll do X, Y, Z on the tyre pressures, I go the other way. And I completely changed my strategy as well. Normally, as you've seen, I pit as soon as the window opened, and as we saw at Snetterton, it didn't work. So I decided to stay out as long as I could. And when I was behind, was it Tom, James and Jack, I worked out that in the pit stop I lost around 9 seconds. If I stayed within that window, I would jump back into the lead again, and I did.
Oh, well, fair play. It all worked out in the end. Mark, any questions for Jamie?
Yeah, Jamie, you say they're hard to drive and felt the pressure and everything else. Brands Hatch next time out, if you're running at the front, you've got an extra 30 minutes of pressure there.
God, I'm not looking forward to it, I have to admit. And the other thing, I don't know if it showed up on the stream, around sort of from Clay Hill round to Lodge, it was actually getting dark. So that was another factor as well, because picking where the turning points was really hard. But yeah, an extra half an hour, mate. I'm not looking forward to that. I don't think I'll be able to take that. I won't do a part run that day.
No, congratulations on this morning, by the way.
Thank you.
So as it's the first time we've had a chat to you, A, congratulations on the win, but B, any shout outs that you want to give before we let you loose?
Yeah, I just want to shout out to Bobby because he drove a fantastic race and it is an absolute joy to race with him and all the other guys that race there. And I've got to give shout out to Damien Hirst because I've been bombarding him with sort of advice on what to do because obviously, as you know, he's raced these things. And whereas I haven't raced anything at all, but having driven around Alton Park, I had an idea of what to do. But no, it's just great. And obviously, thank you for Toby for creating this fantastic series. It's by far the hardest one I've done. I'm not used to getting a sweat on.
Well, thanks for joining us in the
You're
commentary
welcome.
box, Jamie. Congratulations again on your first win of the season. Hopefully, we can see more of the same over the next coming round. So we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
Cheers, Jamie. Quick chat there with Jamie Peters-Ennis, and already, we say it every week, thankfully we get an extra half an hour, hopefully, to scratch that itch at Brands Hatch. Some drivers, I'm sure, will love the extra time behind the wheel. Other drivers may be slightly more nervous because that means an extra half an hour of battling and door-to-door action. But of course, we know where the next round is. But the final round of the season, it's going to a vote. So if you're watching along at home, you can vote on the final round. The 18th of March, it will be another 60-minute race at one of the next 4 tracks mentioned. It could either be Anglesey, the coastal layout. We could go over the pond. We could go international and race at Laguna Seca, or we could go over to the continent and race at Vallelunga on the classic layout, or to Zandvoort. So Anglesey, Laguna Seca, Vallelunga, or Zandvoort, the 4 tracks you can vote on. And I believe the votes will be open either now or very shortly on social media. So make sure if you want to play your part in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series and put your vote into the hat, make sure you go over to social media and you vote on the final round. And at the moment, looking at the championship, no matter what circuit we're at, it could throw everything into the mix, or it could massively flip the championship. But you can say one thing for sure: there's going to be close racing.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what if people in the public vote throw a curveball, because I've seen what the drivers are voting, and it was fairly clear what the drivers preferred. I'm not going to allude to what it was, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see as to whether there's a curveball thrown in that one. And it may well be, some drivers are going to be far more familiar with some tracks than they are with others. Can't wait to see what the final round's going to be held at. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's definitely lots to look forward to. So we've got to close out, I'm afraid. It's already that time of the evening. We were here at Alton Park, Brands Hatch in 2 weeks' time. We simply wouldn't be able to do it without the brilliant sponsors we've got on board for the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. Of course, Grid Finder, Positive Perception. We had a great chat with Mark Raddenbury about Positive Perception earlier on, and of course they do have a They make all the digital liveries, not only for Assetto Corsa, but other simulators alike. And if you are looking at getting into the EnduroKA actual series, of course, entries now open. You can get a livery made up for, instead of the usual £150, £100. They've got a special deal on for EnduroKA liveries. Of course, MSVT Racing and EnduroKA themselves, Burton Power and Turn 7. We had a chat with Callum McDougall from Turn 7 at Snetterton a couple of weeks ago. They do some great team and racewear, as well as a lot of work with Caterhams as well. And of course, prizes still up for grabs. And if you are lucky enough to win one of those ARDS licenses, you can go and race an EnduroKA for real, because entries are now open for that as well. Mark, any final comments from yourself?
Brilliant racing again, as we've said every week. Where does that 60-minute go? It goes through in the blink of an eye. Some fantastic racing again, some really tight battles, and congratulations to all of the drivers out there. Couldn't be any closer. Beautifully poised. Head to Brands Hatch for round 5. 4 different winners out of 4 races. Brilliant.
Yeah, we could even make it 5 from 5, and hopefully that is what we see. Who doesn't love a close championship? But from myself, Jack Werrell, alongside me this evening, it's been a pleasure. Mark Werrell, we will see you in 2 weeks' time at Brands Hatch. Bye-bye.